Hey everybody, Sloggy here. Welcome to another episode of Hiker Sessions where we speak to thru hikers, day hikers, and everyone in between. And today I'm really excited. We've got Steelhead on. Steelhead, which before that was Fishin' Jimmy, which before that was Jim. When I met him last year on my 2024 Appalachian Trail thru hike, I met him in a little like bakery breakfast place in Dalton, Massachusetts. He was very clean cut at that time, and he was still working. And we struck up a great conversation about the AT. And were you planning to do it this year at that time or no?
Yeah, at that time, you definitely were an inspiration because it was great that morning. As you mentioned, it was at the local coffee shop. Every morning on my way to work, I would stop at that local coffee shop and try to talk with some different hikers. And I can distinctly remember the day that I saw you. You were sitting at a table. I walked over. I said, "Are you a thru hiker? Do you have some time to talk?" And you invited me to sit there, and we must have talked for 30, 45 minutes. That definitely was an inspiration. I learned a lot from that conversation. But yeah, to your point, I wasn't specifically uh, going to do it this year. It was probably 2 or 3 years out. But what happened where I worked, there was a lady that I've worked with for years. I was up talking to her one day and saying, I think I'm going to do the Appalachian Trail at some point in my life. And she said, well, my husband just retired and he's actually doing it this year. Um, so that was kind of the push to say, okay, maybe this is lining up and I should do it this year. So
Yeah, that was the trail speaking to you. They're
I
like,
think
"Come
it was,
on,
yeah.
this is your window."
Yeah, yeah. So I quit my job and I'm doing the trail and I'm enjoying it. It's been everything that I would expect to this point. Uh,
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that because sometimes people's expectations they set them too high. So you're about 50-ish days in. You're sitting in Harrisburg, Virginia.
I am, yeah, yeah, at a nice little
Okay, so
hostel here.
I did some rough. Yeah, give the hostel a shout out. Where are you staying
Yeah,
at?
so let me get the exact name. The Angels Rest Hikers Haven in
Yep,
Petersburg, Virginia.
awesome.
It's a great little place. It's centrally located. You can walk to the local grocery store. You can walk to some of the restaurants. So if anybody's hiking through, I would definitely recommend staying here.
Yeah, I remember I had my fair share of ice creams at that Dairy Queen
Yeah.
right
Oh
up the
yeah.
road from the Kroger's there, kind of on the corner.
Yeah.
So you're about 30% of the way in. What, if anything? So it's meeting expectations, which is awesome. I can tell just by looking at you, you're having an awesome time. What's been like a surprise or two that in your research and everything, or just something that happened out there?
Yeah. Well, so I would say the one thing that I'm a little concerned about. So when I started, I bought a ultralight backpack, and I packed all my equipment in it, and it was just so heavy it didn't carry well. So then I ended up buying a heavier Osprey backpack, which with food and water, I mean, it's close to 37, 40 pounds. Um, and it's quite heavy. I've been losing a lot of weight. The backpack no longer fits me properly, so I can't adjust it. So I am having a lighter backpack sent to me. I'm going to send a bunch of equipment home. So I guess that would be my one main thing that I wasn't expecting. Um, and the most depressing day on trail is when you go resupply your food, you fill up your food bag, and you put that backpack on. That it's soul crushing. It really is. Uh,
And it's always out of a town or an up. It always seems like the towns are at the bottom of a hill for some
Always,
reason, right?
yeah, yeah. The towns and shelters as well. We had a shelter that we went to a couple days ago, and water is kind of scarce now that we're in Virginia. So we packed up a bunch of water 2 miles out from the campsite or the shelter, and I swear that shelter, the hike back up was 2 miles straight up, and just carrying all that weight was pretty tough.
Yeah, yeah, because you're going to start hitting some more heat as well. I know in Maine it's 75, 76 degrees
Uh,
today in Maine, so I know you're going to start hitting that. It's that
it is, yeah,
mid-Atlantic push.
yeah.
So you mentioned you're hiking with the gentleman. you worked with his wife.
Yeah.
He retired. How's that going as far as hiking together? Because you don't know, you didn't always know if that was going to work out, right? I mean, one guy goes slower, one guy goes faster. How's it
Right.
worked out?
Yeah. I actually met him about a month before the hike was actually starting. Um, and to tell you the truth, it's worked out great. I don't know if it's because we've been hiking together since the start that our pace is similar, or if we're just at that age where we hike at the same pace. But he's been a great partner so far. We kind of he kind of schedules what we're going to hike for the day, and I schedule like when we're going to go into a hostel or a shuttle. So it's worked out great. Uh, I don't know if we're going to finish together. I hope we do. Um, but so far so good.
Yeah. Have you had that conversation, not to jinx or anything, have you had that conversation like, at some point we may split up or geez, what do we do if someone gets hurt?
Yeah, no, we have. And I think we're okay with splitting up, but there's always that chance that if we do, that we'll regroup again. Um,
Yeah.
and that's one other thing that I would say. We've met so many great people along the way. We haven't really had a tramily of sorts, but we do see the same people at the shuttle or at the shelters each night. We haven't really been as part of a tramily, but we do hike in and around the same people for the most part. It it's a little disappointing when you do get that connection. You go out to eat on your 0 day, but then you miss. I mean, you disconnect, and even though there may be like a day behind, you never really reconnect with them. That's the kind of the hardest part.
Yeah, it is. I had a similar instance. I was around Grayson, just north of Grayson Highlands.
Mhm.
And I'd hiked with a guy, Coyote, he was known as at that point, which so that's around the 500-mile mark.
Yeah.
And we never crossed paths again.
Really? Oh wow.
And he
And you
was a
were
great guy. We came close. I was at the lodge on the mountain in Greylock,
Mhm.
and he was at the bottom of it. And I had breakfast there, and he came up and had lunch. So we were literally within like 3 hours of, and we didn't
Oh
know it
wow.
at the
Jeez.
time. So
Oh,
it's interesting, you do have that orbit of people you see a lot, but then, someone could just be a day or so behind you or ahead of you the whole way. It is,
yeah.
it
Oh
is
yeah.
interesting. What about, wow, what about food? How much have you, what kind of did you start out eating? And are you eating the same thing or have you changed it a little bit?
Yeah. No, I have changed it. So I did prepare a couple mail drops ahead of time. So when I was preparing those at home, I was trying to get around 3,000 calories in different variations of different types of food. It's changed quite a bit since I've been on trail, um, trying to reduce weight. So I tend to eat a lot of candy bars. I think that's one thing that you mentioned when I talked to you at one point. Um, a lot of power bars. I'm kind of gravitating away from the dehydrated meals because they really just aren't appetizing. They all taste the same. So I'm doing like mashed potatoes, rice, ramen, uh, chicken packets, tuna packets. Um, but yeah, I mean, you really don't eat well on trail. It's when you go into town that's when you really enjoy it and you get your calories that way.
Yeah, yeah, you have to get them in advance. What about, you mentioned your weight earlier. Have you weighed yourself like at the hospital or anything? Do you have
Eh,
any idea how much weight you've
So when I
lost?
left, I was about maybe 162. I'm a smaller guy, so I was about 162. I weighed myself yesterday, and it was 145. So I've lost quite a bit of weight.
Oh, whoa, that's 10% plus right there.
Uh-huh.
That's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah. I don't know if
a
the
lot,
scale
a
is
lot of
accurate.
kilos.
I mean, my clothing when I started, it was a little snug, like the hiking pants. I've been using hiking pants mainly for the first stretch, and they're just so loose now that I think I'm gonna switch to shorts probably starting tomorrow. Um,
Yeah, you'll probably start to get warmer. What about
yeah.
weather? I know I've been following your blog, and it sounded like you had some rain or something. Have you had any like snow or freezing rain or really cold days or nights?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, we've been really lucky. So the first 2 weeks of our hike, had hardly any rain, which is, I guess, uncommon for the AT. Um,
Yeah.
There is one night that distinctly I remember. I think it's called Beauty Point. It's a uh, probably a couple hundred miles in, either Beauty Point or Beauty Rest. It's a particular landmark area. Um,
Yeah.
and right when we hit that point, it started freezing rain. We had about probably 2 miles to get to camp, so everything got wet. And I made the mistake of just all the wet clothing that I had on, even my rain clothing, I just hung in my tent. And when I woke up the next morning, everything that was wet was frozen, including the tent. It was hard to unzip the tent because the zipper was frozen. Uh, that's probably the worst day we had. But one of the better days we had, I think we were on a zero and we got some snow that day. And we were going up Roan Mountain the next day. And when we got to the top, it was just spectacular because everything was covered in snow and ice crystals, and it was a sunny day, and everything just glistened in the sun. It was pretty
Wow.
spectacular.
That's awesome. I
Yeah,
can picture what that would look like. What about so you're at a hostel there. Have you stayed in any other interesting hostels or places along the way so far?
yeah. So we did Uncle Johnny's, which is basically reconstructed at this point. Um, Couple hotels, one in Gatlinburg, one in Franklin, uh, and Hiawassee. And we stayed at another hostel, at one of the most popular ones on the trail. I forget the name of. Uh,
Woods Hole?
no, not Woods Hole. I forget the name. It's one of the most popular. Um, outside of,
Round the Bend?
yeah,
Woods Off?
maybe It's in the Hot Springs area.
You mentioned Uncle Johnny's. Did
Hmm?
you take the boat
Ooh, we
across?
did, yeah, yeah. And I was a little surprised about that. I thought the boat would take you across the full river, but it only brings you halfway, and then you've got to wade across the other portion because
Wow.
I guess the water is pretty low on the other side. Um, yeah, but yeah, every hostel I've stayed at has been a pleasureful. I mean, a great experience. The shuttle drivers, I mean, a lot of them, it's surprising, are past through hikers, and a lot of them are from the Northeast that have kind of migrated down here. Uh, I think there's some attraction of the AT that brings people back.
Oh, I think definitely. I think it's that, and then I think what draws a lot of them, especially shuttle drivers south, is there's just so many people. Because you'll see as you go further north, it does thin out for whatever reasons,
Yeah.
but there's just so many people at the beginning. I mean, I'm sure have you come to any tent sites where there's just or campsites where there's just like 20 tents or something?
Oh
You're like,
yeah,
where did
no,
all these
fully
people come
loaded.
from?
Yeah, yeah. In fact, a couple nights ago, at the top of it's a shelter that's fully enclosed. Um, I think it's the only fully enclosed shelter on the AT. Again, I forget the name of it. Um, but we showed up and it was starting to rain that day, and it was scheduled to thunderstorm and pour all night. The shelter filled up pretty quickly, and then it was overflow. People had to sleep on the floor. Uh, so I'm not a fan of shelters.
Yeah, no, I like to, I other than staying at hostels or a Super 8 or something like that, I really got used to my tent
The
and all
tent, yeah,
that.
yeah.
Um, so so you're about what, you're mile 637 or so.
Hmm.
So you've got some pretty cool stuff coming up. You've got Virginia Triple Crown
Yeah.
within the next, well, I think that's around the 700-mile mark or so. So in the next week, you're going to be seeing some pretty cool sights. What's the
Uh-huh.
weather look like? Have you checked it
Yeah,
for the
that's
next week or so?
there's thunderstorms in the forecast most days. Um, I'd like to get a nice day at McAfee Knob, because
Yeah.
I guess you can see it. There's a sun set and a sunrise that you can catch.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes. I was just down there about 3 weeks ago. There's a brand new hostel too that's very, very close to the McAfee trailhead and another road crossing. And
okay.
it's a Huckleberry's Hostel. A friend of mine that I through hiked last year opened it up. So if it works out good
Oh
for you,
yeah, I'll keep
I'll
that in
definitely
mind. Yeah.
recommend you
Uh huh. Okay.
stay there. But McAfee's, the sunset's okay. the sunrise is
That's it. So that's the one. So if
unbelievable.
we're gonna hit the sunrise, yeah.
Yeah, but you could almost too, depending on your mileage, the way it goes. You could hit the sunset and then you go north about maybe a mile or less to a campsite.
Mhm.
And then if you get up early, leave your pack there. And then, I always hated going south when I was going north, but
Right. Yeah.
you could just hike back up for the sunrise. So you can kind of get a twofer there if you plan it right.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's an awesome spot. How about injuries or anything? I mean, I know you probably get aches and pains, and you mentioned your pack
Yeah.
wasn't fitting good. Anything major, or just kind of like
Not
here and there?
nothing major. No, I'm happy about that. I mean, I did a little preparation beforehand. So where I lived, there's mountains, and I was able to do a lot of fall and winter hiking. So that kind of prepared me. So those initial aches and pains and blisters, I kind of got through that phase, so that when I started, I was in fairly good shape. Um, I guess the only concern I have is the amount of weight that I'm losing and keeping weight on. I don't know if at some point it just your body fat goes away, and then that's when the issues could potentially happen. But I mean, I feel great. I think I'm getting my hiker legs at this point, because we're able to do 18 to 20 miles without any issues or pains at the end of the day, and then I can get up the next day and do the same thing. So I'm feeling pretty optimistic.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know just for me and anecdotally some other people, as soon as they got to like the northern part of Virginia, like the Shenandoahs
Mm.
and that area, and the roller coaster right before you get out of Virginia. That's when the food. It seems a lot more like urban, a lot more possibilities to get food. And
Okay,
then
so
once you
that's
get into
good.
like New
Yeah.
York and New Jersey and the delis,
Mhm.
so that's when I found I actually started gaining a little bit of weight. So
Okay.
I think it's that first couple of months
The hard
is
part,
is
right?
the is the roughest. Well,
Yeah.
just because of availability, right? You just
Right.
don't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
convenience stores and
Mhm.
things.
Yeah.
So,
Because really, I don't
um,
think we've really passed many convenience stores on the trail to this point.
no,
So you've basically got to do a shuttle into a town and do a resupply that way.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Well, look, I'm so excited you joined. I
yeah.
definitely would like to maybe like every 600-700 miles get you back on,
Yeah,
and then
if I'm still on trail, that'd be great. I mean, I plan on staying the whole way, so barring
yeah,
any incidents, I think I'm gonna make it.
yeah, yeah. Have you fallen yet? And if so, how many times? Do you
Yeah, not
know?
really. Close calls. I mean,
Good.
there's been some mud situations, sliding. The one thing that we are seeing a lot in Virginia, and I'm a little worried now with Pennsylvania. There's quite a few rocks, so we're having to navigate a
Yeah.
lot of rock structures, and they say that Pennsylvania is the Rocksylvania. So I'm kind of afraid to see what that looks like compared to what we're seeing now in Virginia.
Yeah, I'd agree. Probably the last 40 miles of Pennsylvania is probably the worst, but I gotta be honest with you, I don't like snakes.
Uh
And I was so into just laser focus looking for rattlesnakes and copperheads on those rocks that
huh.
I
Okay.
didn't pay a lot. I didn't really notice the rocks that much,
Uh huh. Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's definitely rocks. But
Yep.
like I said, once you get into the Shenandoahs and stuff, it, you get into the Shenandoahs, you get all those little roadside restaurants and things.
Mhm.
I went into the Shenandoahs with a one day's worth of food in my bag.
Oh wow. Well, that's good to hear.
So yeah, you
Yeah.
can fill up at the road crossings and things like
Uh
that.
huh.
So
Yeah. Okay.
but awesome. Well, look, hey, get some rest.
Yeah.
You taking off tomorrow morning?
Taking off back on trail tomorrow morning. Yeah. So
Awesome,
yeah, the rest days
awesome.
definitely do help.
Yeah, I think that's important. That was my mistake. I didn't take enough rest days at the beginning. I think it's you get out there and you get in a rhythm and things, but I think it's important
You
to
do.
get
Yeah.
those rest days for sure. It just lets
Mhm.
your body heal, and you get to have double up your meals in
Right.
towns.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Uh huh. Yeah. Yeah. We're gonna go
yeah.
out
Oh,
tonight
what's
somewhere.
your
So
the guy you're hiking with? Did he have a trail name when he started?
he didn't. No, I kind of gave him a trail name because I'm hiking with him every day, and he chugs along at a pretty consistent speed, uphill, downhill, flats. So I gave him the trail name One Speed.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Did
Yeah.
he like it?
He did, yeah, yeah. And actually, my trail
Nice.
name, so I, like you said, I was going by Fishing Jimmy when I started because I love to fish. I've fished my whole life. Um, but I was talking to a thru hiker that I met. He was doing it a second time, and he happened to like the fly fish as well. So we got talking one night about all the different experiences we've had on the river. And then a couple days later, he just came up to me out of the blue and said, "Hey, how about Steelhead? It's a trail name." So I said, "Yeah, no, that sounds great." So
That's awesome.
that's my trail name, Steelhead.
I know, I like it. It sounds very fitting, and I'll have to when you make it up here, because as you know, I live real close to the 100-mile wilderness. I'll have to bring you up a rod or maybe a telescoping rod if the forecast is nice. There's some awesome places to
Yeah, no,
fish in the 100-mile wilderness.
I'm preparing for that. So I've talked to many hikers on trail that have hiked that area, and a couple shuttle drivers as well that enjoy fishing. And they said if you're going to bring a fishing rod anywhere, it's going to be Maine. So I think I will get a telescoping type of they call them tenkara rods. I'll get one
Yeah,
for Maine.
yeah. Western Maine, not so much. Western Maine is just more mountains.
Yeah.
It's an extension of the White Mountains, but once you get near the Kennebec and north,
Okay.
that last 150 miles, there's some awesome fishing places
Uh,
you can do. So,
Good.
well, look, I'll let you go.
Okay,
I'm
Sloggy.
gonna I'll follow in your blog. I'll know where you are,
Okay.
and I'd love to check in with you again. And are
Sounds
you gonna
good.
shave?
I trimmed it up a little bit. I think
Okay.
I'm just gonna I'm gonna let it grow. That's part of the experience. I've never
It
gone
is.
this long not shaving, so we'll see. We'll see
It's
where it goes.
it's very freeing, let me tell
It
you.
is, yeah, yeah.
Well, like, hey, say hi to One Speed for me, and best of luck, safe travels, and enjoy. Hopefully, there's many trail magics in your future.
I hope so. Okay, Sloggy. Well, hey, good talking to
All
you,
right,
and I
man,
hope we talk again soon.
for sure.
Okay,
See ya.
thanks. Bye.
Bye bye.